Welcome to Book Talks, from books to Botox and everything in between. We hope you enjoy We're Just Girls. Lover is actually my favorite album.
There's a Fourth Wing TV show.
My glabella hasn't moved for 12 years. Love you guys.
Welcome to episode 4 of Book Talks.
Hello.
Episode 4.
Here we are.
It's just every time I say this, it's so crazy. I'm like, we're already on episode 4.
It's really wild.
I know.
It's so exciting. We were just looking at some of our followers and like analytics and stuff, and like we've got some friends, and I'm so happy to have you guys here.
People are actually listening.
It's not just us.
know. It's not
It's a
just
crazy
us.
thought. Like literally the craziest thought.
No, we can't wait to grow this community because I feel like the more like engagement and involvement we have, it's going to even be more fun.
Yeah.
I agree. So today we're going to start off talking about our favorite topic ever, Taylor Swift.
Yes, I feel like this episode's going to come out we decided right after Tortured Poets Department comes out.
3 days after it, something like that. Yeah. So,
Predictions, thoughts, like what is going to happen?
Did you guys see the playlists that she released?
I saw some of it, yes.
Yeah, so she released, I think, 5 playlists that are supposed to be like the 5 stages of grief, which I think really plays into Tortured Poets. And people are freaking out because one of them was Denial. And apparently Lover is on that playlist.
No way.
And everyone, like, people use that as their wedding songs, their first
my
dance,
gosh.
like
It
engagement
is.
videos.
It's so dreamy.
Such a gorgeous song. But people were breaking it down and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the saddest song ever. When you think of it from the perspective of Denial, like she said it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, like...
Well, it's crazy because Lover is actually my favorite album. And I do think we need to do an episode about why we talk about what our favorite Taylor Swift album is. If you guys haven't caught on yet, we are all big Taylor Swift fans.
For sure.
She is incredible. But anyway, Lover is like an ode to Joe.
Yes.
The whole album.
Yeah.
London Boy, all of it, right?
Yeah.
And now she's here sitting saying like it was her in Denial.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy. I saw that Post Malone's going to be on the album too.
I did see that.
I'm like excited.
I'm excited for that.
That's
He's
like very interesting.
Very
It's
dynamic.
wild. I'm gonna pull up. I want to pull up the track list, and if you guys can remember, like, what is your favorite? What song are you most looking forward to?
Yeah.
Do you think it's gonna be like an Evermore folklore type
I hope
vibe,
so.
or are we getting more Midnight's vibe?
I like all her albums. It's so hard. I do love the Evermore and folklore
I do
era
too.
of Taylor Swift.
When they came out, I think we talked about this. When they came out, that's when I fell off of Taylor Swift. I was like,
honestly, I wasn't like a huge fan either.
yeah,
I
I was like, I'm
loved
not
it.
an
I feel
Evermore.
like-
Like when it came out right now, that's probably my top played album is Evermore.
I know.
Like I'm obsessed with it right now.
Well, it's really interesting, Jenny, because people that are like kind of OG Taylor Swift fans, like Taylor and I are almost the same age. And so like I grew up listening to Taylor Swift. Like she sang 22 when I was 22.
Mm-hmm.
And so when those albums came out, I almost like lost a little bit of her, but it brought in a whole new demographic of fans.
Yes, that's when
like I know
got, like,
people
hooked
that
in.
started listening to her just then and were like, I'm obsessed with this. Like,
Yeah.
shows how amazing she is.
That was
She's
me
phenomenal.
because like I wasn't a big Swiftie until
Those
Evermore.
albums.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
So then I went to Eras almost a year ago, right? And it was after Eras that I'm like, oh, I forgot how great those are.
Yeah.
Like, because there's
Yeah.
a big chunk of that tour that is Evermore and Folklore. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like Betty is like one of my top favorite songs now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Peace
There's
is
just
my all-time favorite. Like Peace is just
So good.
so good. But on the Eras tour, when she sings "Tolerate It," I could write a dissertation about just that scene.
I have chills
Yeah.
thinking
the
about it.
table, like her throwing. I was just like, oh,
No, and
so good.
What is it?
I'm like an exile girl.
It's
Oh,
so
I like
good.
Exile.
I have a video of a friend who like Exile came on as this is Spry song, and she like fully
No, Exile is so good if you really look into the lyrics
Yeah.
and like both of their sides to the song. It's so
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
so
really
the
good.
ones that I'm like dying for are I have to like zoom in, of course, because this is like obviously So Long London is gonna be devastating.
That's
my
going to be
gosh.
like a diss track.
You think so?
Taylor Swift is coming out with a diss track, and it's
Imagine
So Long
being
London.
one of Taylor's exes. Like it would be so bad.
It's probably detrimental for your health to be one of Taylor's exes.
Really?
But
I can fix him. No, really, I can.
isn't there one that's like, or is it called Daddy I Can Fix Him or something like that? Maybe I made that
But
up.
Daddy, I love him.
But Daddy, I
Oh
love
my
him. That one
gosh.
I'm excited for.
It's gonna be
'Cause, like,
so good.
How many times have you been, again, like early 20s, we talked about last week, in a silly little relationship that you're like, no, I love him. And your parents
that
are like,
you think is endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
think
think
endgame.
this is endgame.
Yeah.
You think you're getting married.
yeah. And your parents are like, right.
And it's literally crumbling.
I think this is why she's like so popular because she's so relatable. Like
Yeah.
all of her songs are so very relatable to anyone and everyone.
And I love that Taylor doesn't try to be someone she's not.
Exactly.
And she never has.
Never
That's the
has.
coolest
And
thing.
even when she like couldn't dance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like even when she like was getting crap from going from country to pop. Like
Yeah.
she still just was like, yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah,
and
she's
I
like,
think this
sorry.
kind of like leads into our other topic.
Yeah, it
Her
really
and
segues well.
Travis versus, you know, last week we talked about Kristen Cavallari and the Montana Boys, how different their relationships are. Like Taylor and Travis, they don't want to be in the public eye. I feel like they don't.
I think they have to be because they're both such mega stars.
But I think they get so tired of it, especially Taylor.
But
Yeah.
it seems really authentic compared.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that Kristen, what's his name? I'm just like Montana. Like
I
his name
know.
is Montana.
No,
and I
his
have
name's
clue.
Mark.
Okay, I was
Estes.
like, I have no clue.
I know he has the
couldn't
same
tell
last
you.
name.
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah.
So like Kristen and Mark, they've got the age gap, but it also seems like such a publicity stunt. Like you
Yeah.
said, like it
Yeah.
just feels so forced. Whereas Taylor and Travis, they're in the media. Obviously, they're everywhere. They're okay with it, but they're like trying to live privately.
Exactly.
But on the flip side of that, like Joe and Taylor, we were like, why don't we get anything? Where are they?
We
want a
didn't get
picture.
anything.
It was
Why are-"
all Joe.
Like, and that was all Joe.
Guys,
for
I
sure.
didn't even know she was dating Joe because there's nothing
Yeah.
out there.
So here's the thing too, is so everyone when Taylor and Travis came out, it was like, oh, this is a publicity stunt. She's so cringy. She's acting. And it's like, actually, no, that's who she is.
That's
Yeah.
she's
But
a
those
little-
of us
yeah.
that know her and love her, like love that cringiness about her
Yeah.
and like
Yep.
have seen that in relationships before. Like think of when she was dating Harry Styles, like they were photographed everywhere. That's
Yeah.
because these mega guys that don't really care to be photographed, like Travis doesn't care to be photographed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Joe, I think, was the one that was like, if we're not in hiding, I'm breaking up with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
And she went to
crazy.
these like, once again, you're doing these toxic things for these boys that you
Yeah.
think are
End game.
the right thing for you. And it was so
Exactly.
wrong.
Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look up this is so Ryan, but like his Forbes net worth is like $1 million. And
It's
she
so
is now
crazy.
like a full blown billionaire.
Her cat
Insane.
is worth more than Joe
They were
Alwyn.
like
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
they just didn't
Literally.
fit.
Yeah,
They didn't,
no, they didn't.
yeah.
And she was forcing it, obviously, because we all know from all of the stories. But I'm just so happy for her now.
I'm
I
so
know,
happy
so
for
much
too.
her.
She seems so happy. She's like,
And he's
Peak
just like, can't wait
character.
to come on your European tour. Like
Yeah.
he's so
cute.
sweet.
He's so
Like,
supportive.
All the stuff that happened around the Super Bowl, remember all that? Where she was in like Singapore, somewhere
literally,
crazy,
like,
somewhere,
Japan, and
yeah, somewhere
flew home
crazy
that
far
day.
away. Flew home, came to the game, and then he came. Like,
Yeah.
they were literally traveling the whole world just to be with each other and support each other. And,
Yeah.
like,
exactly.
And the
It's
pictures
crazy.
that came out of the Bahamas looked authentic.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just so different from the Montana Boy and Kristen Cavallari
Yeah.
relationship. It's so much more authentic. It's not in your face. It's not like, look,
Well, and neither of them are like asking for interviews about it. Like Kristen
Exactly.
went to E! News.
they're literally going on podcasts.
Remember,
Like,
what was the
podcasts and
E News?
podcasts.
Too much.
Um,
The E! News, like, oh, Kristen wants a baby?
crazy.
It's
too
so
much.
crazy. It's so
much.
crazy. It's Delulu. It's
Baby
giving
having
delusional.
It's
Babies.
giving Delulu vibes.
But
very
like,
Delulu.
kind of to like wrap up the segment, I just don't understand how people can hate Taylor Swift. Like, it blows my mind. I'm just like, so you hate a girl boss?
I think that's
Right.
that's-
You
they
hate
need
a
to
role-
look in the mirror.
Yeah, you
It's-
hate
yeah,
a
the
role
call is
model.
coming from inside the house
Like,
at that
I'm
point.
confused. You hate a role model. You hate, like, she is such a good role model to like young girls.
Yeah.
And to hate her, I'm just like, I'm so confused. So you just hate a good role model.
And so multifaceted. So she's
Yeah.
a great artist. Even if you don't love her style of music, you have to give it up. She's a great artist.
You have
Yeah.
to respect her skill.
Yep.
She's a genius businesswoman.
She
She wants
is.
to own all of her own music. She's also like advocating for other artists. I
Yep.
think it was with Spotify that she negotiated more
Yeah.
money for every other artist because they weren't paying them enough. Like
Yeah.
she's just a good person through and through. And people are like, all she talks about is her ex-boyfriends. Show me one pop song on the top 100 right now
That isn't
that
about-
isn't
yeah.
about a
Yeah.
relationship.
Well, that's it. Or
Show me one.
literally every single country song.
Every single country song.
Every, like,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think people just love to hate a woman in
Oh, yeah.
that position. Like,
Oh, yeah.
she's so successful. And I think this is my theory. I think this is why guys are like, Taylor Swift, like, they don't like her because I feel like
she's like that. They, yeah. Like,
they're intimidated.
yeah.
Like, she's
Oh, yeah.
she's in this position of power. She's making so much money. She's a businesswoman. And I think it makes men angry.
And I think that's why I think Travis has more self confidence in his
Yeah.
pinky finger than most men.
Yeah.
100%.
And so he just fits the bill.
Yeah.
Like
so,
even if he's a little wild and like he's kind of cringy too, it's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like, oh well, that looks like a match made in heaven.
Exactly.
And like, we can go into so much more depth about like Taylor and her entire, you know, rise to fame. There's so much that we can go into.
For sure. I think we should do like an albums, not like an albums deep dive, but each of us share like what album spoke to us and like
Yeah.
certain songs because there's so much we could go into.
There's
Yeah.
so much.
My
Like,
sister and I did like what are your top 3 songs
Yeah.
of all of her music, and
Oh,
that's
it's so
really
hard.
fun to do.
Yeah.
It's a hard one.
I just think she's amazing.
She really is amazing.
Yeah.
And kind of a segue to a later topic, but I saw a TikTok, I think last night, it was like a big, not an interview, but maybe like a press conference that Rebecca Yarros, Fourth Wing author, was having. And they asked her, like, what Taylor Swift song is Onyx Storm, the third book coming out? What would you put? How would you compare them?
That's the best thing I've ever heard.
And she was like, first of all, she was like, oh my gosh, I should have read these questions before. She's like, you sent them to me, but I didn't read them. But she was like, Onyx Storm is very reputation coded.
Oh my gosh.
And I am so excited.
I'm so excited.
She was like, I can't really pick a song, but it is very
goosebumps.
reputation coded.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that third
crazy. Oh my god.
Yeah, I do feel like, I mean, we'll get into the Onyx Storm
in a
type,
minute.
but she's got a lot of, I think, groundwork.
Oh yeah.
For book 3.
I am so excited.
Yeah. We love Taylor. Okay, so our next, we're going to talk about our favorite aesthetic treatment.
Oh, yes. I mean, we said this in episode 2 about how, like, I don't know how, if you haven't heard about Botox yet or you haven't dabbled in it, like, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Botox is my drug of choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. If there was one treatment I had to get, nothing else the rest of my life, it would probably be Botox.
No
Okay,
question
Carly,
asked.
break down Botox for us, like in
So
an easy, simple way.
I call it my kindergarten explanation. So we're talking about the basics of Botox or Dysport today. Those are the 2 most common products. There also is, you may have heard of Xeomin or Jeuveau. They're all essentially, the way I describe it is like if you took ibuprofen. Ibuprofen's a drug a lot of us know. Advil, Motrin, Aleve. They're all ibuprofen, but they formulate them a little differently. So that's how Botox is. Botox is onabotulinum toxin A. It is an ingredient that is derived, and then each company adds a different protein. That protein makes them work in different ways. So then there's all these different products, but essentially they're all the same thing, and they're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
It blocks a pathway from your brain to your muscles. Just blocks it so that when you go to move your muscles, they are essentially frozen. But there's different products that can control how much movement we leave. So obviously I'm like fully frozen right now. So my eyebrows are not moving, but it doesn't look it doesn't look unnatural.
Yeah.
No.
So that is is Botox safe? Yes, it is
100%.
safe. It has been studied. It's kind of the same argument I do with penicillin. Penicillin is also a bacteria.
Yeah.
Right.
But guess what? It saves lives.
Exactly.
Like if we looked into penicillin and said, oh, I'm not using that bacteria.
Yeah.
Come on.
Exactly.
So onabotulinum has been studied, filtered, cleared by the FDA for tens and tens of years. It is
Yeah.
a safe treatment. It is done, FDA approved on pregnant women. It's not done for cosmetics of pregnant women, but it is done for it's used for bladder control and migraines and and actually they're working on the FDA approval right now for depression because it's that good.
Yeah.
It is used for so much more than cosmetics, and that's kind of a point I wanted to make was it's been used in medicine for so long for like spasms, like Carly was saying, your bladder spasms, migraines, everything else. It's like not just cosmetic, and I feel like it gets a bad rep in cosmetics for some reason.
Will you explain to us, Jenny, though, I think the most common question we get as injectors is what is a unit? Like, tell me how that works.
point.
So we dose Botox, Dysport, Xeomin, Jeuveau in units. Every brand is dosed differently.
Yes.
So Dysport dosing are higher units than Botox dosing. So a unit is just a measurement of the medication pretty much.
It's your dose.
Yes.
So every person that walks in the door gets their own dose.
Exactly.
Just like you would with an antibiotics dose based on your weight.
Yep.
Not your weight for Botox, but like based on how much your muscles
Movement,
move.
yep.
There's a lot that determines your dose.
And another important thing I wanted to highlight is dose is duration. So the biggest thing I get is when someone comes in and it's their first time and they sit in our chair and they're like, I am so scared. I don't want a lot of units. I want like a baby dose. And
Right.
I get that. Like it is so scary. And here we're very conservative. So like less is more. But we're learning that the higher you dose, the longer your toxin's going to last. So if you're dosing low, your treatment isn't going to last as long.
Well, it's like imagine it's kind of like why we fill our tanks up with gas all the way.
Yeah.
If you fill it up halfway, you actually burn through it faster.
Yes.
Your engine doesn't run well on a half tank
Yeah.
of gas. It wants the full tank.
And if you're placing the toxin correctly, which we are highly trained to do so here, you will not feel the heaviness that people talk about. You can
Yeah.
feel heavy in your forehead.
Yeah.
If you're placing the toxin wrong, obviously we're not going to like dose you guys above FDA approval.
Right.
But like, again, doses duration. So when we give you guys a unit amount, I promise you it's your dosing. We're not trying to overdose you or underdose you. It's specifically made for you. And I love when my clients just trust me and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
do it. Like, do what you need to do. This is what you recommended because we're medical providers.
Yeah.
So you don't go into a doctor's office and they're like, okay, so you're going to take antibiotics for 7 days. And you're like, can I take it for 3? Like, that's like such a good
your
comparison.
toxic
You just-
trait is going to be thinking you know how many
exactly.
units
Like
you
I
need.
get so
Yeah.
many people that are like, can we do like less units? And it's like, sure, but like just to let you know, your treatment is gonna last 3 months.
Right.
So like in 2 months, you're gonna call me and you're gonna be like, I feel like it didn't last as long, and I'm gonna say it's because we did less than what was
Right.
recommended.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about too, I think it's so interesting. A lot of people will be like, oh, I just want to treat my 11s. Like, I don't want to do anything else and I just want to treat my 11s. Talk about like why that's not ideal.
So I truly believe that the 3 muscles in your upper face work together. So your forehead,
So
your
there is,
glabella,
so you have 3 muscle groups
Yeah.
between your eyes and up.
and your crows, right around, like
Yeah.
right around your eyes, your smile lines, like right here. Those 3 muscles all work in conjunction.
Mm-hmm.
If you treat one and not the other, sometimes some funky things can happen. Sometimes. And you know what? Some people want to treat just their 11 lines. And if they're a candidate for just treating the 11 lines, I'm like, yes, let's do it. But just to let you know, I'm warning you that if we don't treat your forehead, weird things might happen.
And I always say you're going to be hyper aware. So
Yes.
anything that we treat will be smoothed out and essentially not be moving. So your forehead may overcompensate and
Exactly.
you never know. Like
Exactly.
when Jenny says weird things maybe happen, she means like all of a sudden you may be like, I have a forehead line that didn't exist.
Exactly.
Well, guess what? You're moving your forehead because it's the only muscle group that
Yeah.
can kind of fire right now.
Exactly. And if you're treating your forehead without your glabella, you're going to feel heavy.
Yeah.
Because those muscles work in conjunction. One's a depressor, one's a elevator.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people think they're being oversold. They're like, oh no, I just wanted this treated today. And then when they hear their provider say like, oh no, we need to do your forehead as well. And even when they explain that, they're like,
Yeah.
you're just trying to upcharge me. It's really not. It's the science behind how your anatomy works.
And I think that's the harder part about medical aesthetics is like people feel like they're being sold because like our last episode, we were talking about how there's so many med spas out there now. And,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes you go to these med spas and you are being sold. So it's, again, important to go to someone that you trust, that you know you're not being sold. We're actually telling you, you know, exactly what you need.
Yeah. I always say too, getting Botox or getting Dysport is a luxury procedure.
It is.
And it's like, even with inflation in the past couple of years, like the cost of treatments are going up. There are ways that we can happily help you fit it within your budget, but don't come in here with like a certain price you're going to want to spend and think we can give you the world and more with that.
Right.
It
Exactly.
really is going to be tailored to kind of what your muscles need. Like, for example, even though I'm only, 33, I need more units in my glabella because of my anatomy than like most 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to be different. And then the problem is, say you're coming in here and you're saying, I only want to spend $200. Okay. So you only spend that $200, but you didn't get the result you wanted.
Exactly.
Right.
So where did that money go?
Was
I'm
the
always
nowhere.
like, what?
Yeah.
Then you essentially just spent $200 on a half treatment. Like,
Exactly. It doesn't
you
make
don't want a
sense.
watered down Diet Coke.
It
You
doesn't
wouldn't
make
go to
sense.
half of a movie.
You
Yeah.
wouldn't go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, let's find something that's going to help you. Like, spend the $200 on a bottle of retinol.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Before
Something that's gonna give you the result.
pour, and then when and we obviously have financing options now, and there's a lot of things that make these aesthetic treatments available to more people, but don't think you're going to get the world with your $200.
Exactly. And I feel like here, like when someone comes in and they have $200 to spend, we're really honest with being like, you know what? Maybe save that money and then come back when you can do a full dose.
Yeah.
Right.
Or again, buy a bottle of retinol and then we'll treat you next time.
Yeah, or financing options or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Ash, my question for you always is like, as a patient, what would you say like was something that was surprising about Botox to you, or that you expected, or like what does it feel like as a non-nurse?
Yeah.
That's a good
Getting it
point.
done.
I started Botox early because I had said in the past my sister-in-law worked for a dermatologist, so she talked to me about all these things.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, my little 22-year-old
Great.
self marched
Sign
into
me
the
up.
office and did it because I have a
Yeah.
very expressive forehead. Like my eyebrows touch my hairline sometimes. So I expected it to hurt, and it doesn't,
Yeah,
which is
it doesn't
amazing
hurt.
because you think needles doesn't hurt at all. I also didn't know like how long it would last, how you metabolize it, how many factors would go into that. So I was like, okay, I got Botox. I was like, I'm good for a year. She's like, no, come back next quarter, like come back in 3 months.
Yeah.
I happen to metabolize Botox rather quickly. Like you said, I get a high dose also. And I was like, oh, why is my forehead moving?
Yeah.
And I have, what was this? Is it called Omega or something like that?
Like the little between your
I
brows,
get
it
this
goes
little
like
thing.
higher up. Yeah.
And so that took a while to dose as well. So even like my first dose I ever did as a patient wasn't right. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I get this like bump, like it still moves right here. And she's like, oh, I need to move this,
Well,
this,
she'll
this.
touch it up, yeah.
And like now when you guys do it too, you're like, oh, we know how to do this.
Exactly.
Like we chart everything now.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's almost a trial and error to an extent. Because like
Yeah.
you said, you have to find your right dose.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so don't be disappointed after your first Botox appointment if you do have to come back for a touch-up
Yeah.
or a follow-up. That's like really common.
It is
It's
common.
really, really common. Like
Yeah.
we're fine-tuning this little scale to make sure it fits your needs.
Yeah.
And that's not always going to be done on the first time.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
even like I know you are such a fan of crow's feet Botox.
Yeah.
I feel like when I do that on my face, I look like a different person.
Yeah.
So like it's the trial and error of
It's
what
all
you like
different.
and what you don't like.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons too Botox can get a bad rep is because people are like, oh my God, I did it and I looked so fake. When I got crow's feet Botox, I think years and years and years ago, I think she probably just did too much, but like my whole upper face didn't move. And I was
And
like,
that
I
can
look
be
like a doll.
And placement
Yeah.
is such a big deal.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people are like, oh my gosh,
Give me
I
a
got
big
it. It
cheesy
was
grin.
awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't move
You
anyway.
don't have crow's feet.
I'm pretty frozen at the moment,
Yeah.
but like she
Yeah.
did it and I was like, there was no life in my eyes is what I kept
Dead
saying.
eyes,
I was like,
yeah.
I look dead. And that's how people are like, oh, I got it and I look dead in the eyes. Botox is awful. No, it's trial and error.
Exactly. It's everybody's anatomy is
And
so
placement.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's anatomy is so different and you got to tweak it sometimes. I think it's just kind of like after your first time, you got to give it a couple tries to get it, you know?
A lot of my patients don't know too that Botox actually is used for like excessive sweating. So it shrinks down your pore and your sweat gland sizes.
Yeah.
So not only is your forehead smoother because your muscles are not moving, but it actually smooths out your pores and gives you like that glow.
Yeah.
It is not just about the muscles, friends.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Like
helps
it
with-
makes your skin look better. Like people that are like haven't done it in a while and come back and they do it again, they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot how good
Yeah.
my skin looks when it's kicked in.
Yep. Yeah.
Skin health. It helps with acne too because you're
Yeah,
not.
because you're
Yep,
shrinking
'cause you're
down
shrinking down
those
that pore.
those pore sizes. Yeah.
We love
It's so
Botox.
cool how many things you can use it for. You talked about migraines and different
Yeah.
things, and like now TMJ has
Yes,
become
you can
such a
do
huge
TMJ,
thing. Like
yep.
the Barbie Botox for the traps, I know that helped some
Yeah.
people. Like it's just so cool.
Oh,
how
yeah, you
many
can-
different things you can do.
You can use so much with Botox.
Yes.
It gets such a bad rap for no reason.
Well, it's just it's funny. It for sure does. And you're kind of like, are you educated? Do you know why you
Exactly.
have that opinion?
Yeah.
Where did you learn that? Was it
Yeah.
on Instagram? Because that's full of misinformation. So I
Yep.
really hope you're talking to a licensed provider, a medical director to get your information because that's the source.
Right.
Exactly.
Go to the source.
Go
Make sure
to the
you're
source.
getting good information.
Yeah.
Yeah, a common misconception I feel like you guys have both heard is like, oh, well, if you stop getting it, then are you going to look wrinkly?
No, you just look how you used to look.
Yeah.
Before Botox.
If anything,
Botox
you
just
look
kind of
better.
pauses things,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
You like literally look like your old self, which is sad after getting Botox.
No, so
because-
here's the running joke in our family is, so I've been getting Botox since I was 21. I started working in derm when I was 18. Dysport wasn't as popular then, so we only had one patient that would ever come in and get Dysport. And then once the bottle is mixed, you can only use it for like a week.
Yeah.
So the dermatologist I work for offered it to the CNAs. I was just an assistant at the time.
Yeah.
So I started getting Botox here when I was 21. So really, my glabella hasn't moved for 12 years.
I'm crying.
So but then you can't get it when you're pregnant. So it was when I was pregnant with my second or my third, I can't remember, but my 7-year-old one day looked at me and all of my Botox was worn off. I was deep into my pregnancy. And he was like, Mom, why do you look so angry?
Aww.
And I'm like, you've never seen me mad before.
Yeah.
Because I've never been able to move. But I mean, your movement comes back and like your skin looks a little more dull.
Yeah.
That's about the extent
That's
of
about
it.
it.
Yeah.
You
And then
look
you get
like
your
you did
touch up
before.
and,
Yeah.
you're back to you. Okay, so to wrap
think-
it up, we
yeah.
love Botox. It's so
Love.
great. If you guys have any questions or you want to come in for a consultation, book an appointment with us. We would love to talk more about Botox
Yeah.
with you guys.
I was going to say one last thing too, similar to Actar, but like Botox is one brand.
Yes.
And it's obviously the most popular brand, but there's Jeuveau, there's Xeomin, there's
Yep.
Dysport. So people are like, oh yeah, I went and got Botox. You might not actually be talking about Botox.
Yeah.
No.
That's
I
just
mean,
what we call the
Jenny
neurotoxin.
Jenny uses Dysport 90% of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a Dysport girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So-
she'll still say like, oh, I'm doing Botox. Like it's
Yeah.
just kind of the,
It's the brand name. It's like a Kleenex. You're like, can I get
Exactly.
a Kleenex? But it's
can I get a Band-Aid?
It's
Or
a tissue.
Advil. It's like,
Yeah,
can I have Advil?
exactly.
But really,
Yeah.
you just want
Yeah.
ibuprofen. So that's a common misconception. I feel like we went over a lot of the just like basics. But yeah, if there is a detailed question or you want to shoot us a DM, please do
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's where we're responding the most.
yeah.
Yay.
Okay, so
Yay.
moving into our book segment.
Yay.
Ashley, start us off with why we all recommend Fourth Wing when, someone's first starting to get into reading.
Yeah. I loved Fourth Wing. That was I liked it more than ACOTAR. I literally have it with me today. Loud and proud. I love Fourth Wing so, so much. And we talked about this in office a little bit, but I think that the reason I loved it is because that's how I really got into fantasy. I was never a Harry Potter person. I don't like even like fantasy movies. Like I just never liked that growing up. And when I started reading Fourth Wing, it was just a much more understandable world.
Yeah.
Because you had said like, oh, so they go to boarding school. I understand the concept of boarding school, as opposed to ACOTAR and these Crescent Cities and Throne of Glass, these series where you have to learn a whole world and learn what's a High Lord and learn a Fae, learn their magic and the wards and everything. This does have a lot of like wards and magic also, but I don't know. They're at a boarding school. I've seen a dragon, not in real life. I've seen a dragon before. Like I
We know dragons.
Yeah. Huge fan of dragons. But like I understand all of these concepts, so it was a lot easier to grasp. It also, you had said this too, like jumps right into excitement.
It does.
I love that about
Like,
it.
I love
yeah, it's
yes,
awesome.
it really does. And I feel like I'm the same as Ashley. Like I was not a fantasy girl.
Yeah.
Carly knows this. Ashley knows this. Like they were trying to get me to read ACOTAR for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I read Fourth Wing first and fell in love.
Yeah.
Like it is so good. And again, it does start off so action packed, whereas ACOTAR takes a little bit to get up to that. So I think that's kind of like what pulled me in. The parapet.
The parapet.
The parapet
You
is
jump
so
right into action.
That's like
Yes.
chapter 3 or
Yeah.
4. Like you're not waiting.
No, the
For
parapet
things to be moving.
is so iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
really
is it
is.
so iconic?
Well, it's Violet's first test of strength.
Yes.
Like it's her mental hurdle. And then it's like the minute she lands in Basgiath, it's like, I can do this. Like,
yes.
And it's like
Yeah.
a physical sense of like she can't turn back. Once she has crossed that parapet and is going
It's
to
so
Basgiath,
iconic.
she's
Yeah.
there.
So we're going to try to keep this relatively spoiler free
Yes.
because we're just talking kind of about the gist of Fourth Wing and why we all loved it. There will be a little snippets, but it won't ruin the book for anyone.
Yeah.
If you're worried about
You're
that.
safe to listen from here.
No, but I love too, Ashley, what you were talking about, how it's really understandable. And Rebecca Yaros does a really good job of throwing in fantasy topics throughout the book.
Yeah, she
It's
does.
not all up front
Yeah.
where you have to digest it and understand it and then move through the book. It's done throughout the book so your brain can really comprehend it well without having to like try to reflect back.
Yeah.
You know, because like in ACOTAR, it gives you a lot of topics that you're like, okay, do I remember that? Like, what was that
Yeah, you have to,
description
like,
again?
go back.
But
Yeah.
it's kind of going with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had said too, I started ACOTAR before I read Fourth Wing. And I say started very lightly because I read a chapter and I was like, oh my God, this is so boring. Oh
I
my
know.
gosh, this
Yeah.
is so boring. I can't get through it. It took me months to read
Yeah.
that first book. But my friend Sarah kept being like, you have to. I love it. It changed my life. Just
Yeah.
read it. Just read it. Finally, I got through it. I finished Fourth Wing before I finished the first book of ACOTAR. And I was like, oh, I get it. And
Yeah.
then that led me into the fantasy realm and I fell in love. But it took me forever to get through ACOTAR, whereas Fourth Wing, like you said, she sprinkles the magic, the fantasy in a
Perfectly.
good dose. Like, it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Throughout. Yeah.
It really
just
just
so
pulls
good.
you in. That's how I was.
It gave, I don't know about you guys, but like growing up, I read a lot during like junior high and high school, like the Divergent series, Hunger
Yeah.
Games, Twilight. That was kind of the YA novels that like I remember being at dance practice and like when it wasn't your turn to be like getting
Yeah.
in the routine, like I would be flipping through the pages of Hunger Games.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what it gave me again.
Yeah.
It
It's
gave
lit-
me that sense of nostalgia, like from chapter 3, you're page turning. Like,
Yes,
it's
yes.
not slow moving
Yeah.
at all. And if there is a slow chapter, it kind of is like a refresher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it gives you a break and then you're
Yeah.
like jumping back into action.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Fourth Wing series is very Hunger Games, Harry Potter coated. Like
Yeah.
it is that vibe. So for millennials, like it really is just such a nostalgic feeling.
Yeah.
Like
but it kind of matured with us.
It
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. And
Like, it's so good, guys. It's amazing.
And
It
I
really
wasn't
is.
like a fantasy girl either, you
Yeah.
guys. Like I was recommended to, or I heard a lot about A Court of Thorns and Roses, and so I kind of jumped into that first. But then like I read Fourth Wing, and I would say of 2023, out of the 150 books I read, it was my hot favorite book of the year.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Because it just like it reignited that love of reading, and then I actually once I reread ACOTAR, it made me even like those more.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so true.
Like it sets you up to enjoy fantasy in a way that like it trains your brain to understand these books.
It
Yes.
really does. And I feel like it's great to go into between like ACOTAR and the Fourth Wing series. The comparisons, like Reese and Farah's relationship versus Zayd and Violet's, like it is so different.
And it's fun to look at.
It is
Yeah.
so fun to compare it. You're like, wow, like they were written so different and it's just so interesting.
yeah.
You know?
I just love Zayden.
Me too.
So
like
much.
obviously Zayd and Violet's relationship is a little bit more toxic than Farah and Reese's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm a little bit more interested. Again, you guys know this, but a little bit more interested in the Zayd and Violet love interest romance, just because it keeps you on your toes a little bit more.
Yeah.
But also, like Reese and Farah's relationship is written so perfect that it's like it's amazing too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, for sure. And I do think we got a TikTok comment and I loved it the most. And, you know, because I'm a Reese stan, I will say nothing negative about him. But
The High Lord
Zayden
does know
is
well.
only like in his 20s.
Yeah,
And
and
Reese is
23.
500. He's like, he probably was like Zayden in
Yeah.
his 20s.
Absolutely.
And like figured out communication by the time he got to 500.
So
Yeah.
let's
So
get
like the communication issues aren't there.
yeah,
Yes.
like let's get a
In
Zayden rewrite.
ACOTAR. Because Zayd, but like I
At
love
500.
watching Zayden
At
grow
500.
up. I love
Yeah.
watching him grow up. Like
Yeah.
the things
Yeah.
that
I
he's
love
done.
watching him like, you know, go through all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like even in Iron Flame, I know this is gonna be our next episode, guys, but he's so much different than he is in Fourth Wing.
Yeah, because he gets to be his whole honest self.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at
so
that.
I will say too, what I love about Fourth Wing and ACOTAR, but Fourth Wing more so, is Violet is a phenomenal female main character.
She
She
is.
is. She really is.
And it was so refreshing to read about like a strong woman who has struggles, but
Yeah.
just like powers through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she talks about, and Rebecca Yarros talks about, like she has like a physical disability. Like
Yes.
she has, I don't remember what the term was exactly, but like essentially like her bones break easier.
Yeah.
So she's just like tougher than the average person. And I remember feeling like that about Katniss Everdeen
Yeah.
back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Like our OG, like the girl like you wanted to strive after and
Yeah.
you want to be like
Yeah.
Violet. And
Yeah.
that's so, and I can't wait for you guys to read Throne of Glass because the female main character in Throne of Glass is probably like pinnacle BA.
BA girl.
But Violet, I loved that, brought me into the world of fantasy and why I like love reading those books because the female main characters are usually really awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like she can be like a broad spectrum of people can relate to Violet because she was a scribe before. Like
Yeah.
she's smart.
Yeah.
She's like got this big old brain. She's a genius. And then she's going through these physical challenges, which
Yeah.
is so cool to see too. So it's like, oh, even if you don't feel like you're the most physical person, like you can relate to one side of her while
Yeah.
she does other things. Like
Yeah.
it's just, she's awesome.
I think Violet is my favorite girl main character that I've read so far. Like,
Yeah.
I love her.
She's so
Yeah.
smart.
She is, and she's just so dynamic. Like, she's written so well.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, as much as I love Zayden, I like Violet more.
Oh, I love Violet too, and that's why sometimes I feel like Zayden's not good enough for her.
Oh, I love Zayden, though.
I
I
love
love Zayden.
No.
I saw a TikTok. I was just telling Jenny, it was like me realizing like, oh my gosh, I love this man. I love Zayden. And then I realized he's just words on a page.
Yeah, I'm like going through fan
It's
art.
hard to
It
not
hurts.
feel like it's like when you end your favorite TV
Yeah.
series. Like I'll never forget when I finished watching Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
And I was like, I live in Dillon, Texas.
Yes, yes. You
But
can't get out of
it's
it.
kind of like that,
Yeah.
right? Where like these characters, she writes them so well that you feel like you're gonna
They're
like
real.
run into
They're
them
real.
at
Yes.
Yeah.
Starbucks.
I know.
Absolutely.
I was just telling
I
the
wish.
girls how I'm like
I wish.
on TikTok scrolling through fan art for hours. Like, I'm such a nerd.
Fan art is
Jenny loves fan art.
I
think
love fan
every
art.
single
Achilles
episode,
heel.
she's been like, so this fan cast, so this fan art.
Oh my gosh.
I'll get fan art from you at 2 a.m.
It's so good. And like they put like dramatic music over it, and I'm like, ooh, I'm
so
getting like
good.
chill.
Did you hear who's producing or like who's making the Fourth Wing TV show?
No.
There's a
Michael-
Fourth Wing TV show.
Oh, it's already like in the works.
Shut
And
up.
It's Michael B. Jordan that is like it's like putting it all together.
I'm not
drop.
okay.
Mic drop. Shut up.
I thought you guys knew this.
Wait,
No, this is the
guys.
best news
Oh
I've
yeah,
ever
no, it's
heard.
already in the works.
cry.
I bet it comes out before the Akhtar show comes out.
Oh, it
I
has
think
to.
we should host like nights where we watch the shows,
Oh, we have to.
the episodes together.
Like bachelor watch parties.
I'm not ready.
I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna
It
bawl
is
my eyes out.
TV. I know it's TV and not movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. All I know is Michael B. Jordan is like the
I have
one that's like
goosebumps.
doing
I
it.
All
am
I have
so
to say
excited.
is whoever's casting, if you do not cast the correct characters
for Zayden.
for Zayden,
Mm-hmm.
I will die.
I know.
I will come for you.
gotta go
I
look
will,
at the fan cast.
Do you have anyone in mind, or are you just going to be picky?
There's this one guy that I have like saved
You'll
on
have
my.
to go look
I'll
and
have to
see.
send you guys. I think Carly has mentioned this before. Casting these characters is very hard, and I think it has to be people that we don't know.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, they can be like, except for like, we were talking about Akhtar and we saw that like Megan Fox was recommended to be Amarantha. And like,
Oh, that's actually
she's a
good.
perfect redemption role.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
yeah, for Fourth Wing, I think like, especially because they're younger,
Yeah.
they have to be someone that you're like not really known for other roles.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
Because isn't that
Yeah.
what we said about Jennifer Lawrence too? Like she wasn't super known before.
No, for sure.
Wait, I saw Margot Robbie had a meeting. With,
She's
with
the one
Sarah
that's
J.
doing
Maas.
Akhtar, I think.
Yeah.
It
Everyone was
got
speculating.
it was supposed to be on Hulu and it got scrapped because Hulu wasn't going to make it spicy enough.
You have to make it spicy.
you
So-
have to. It has to be like a Game of Thrones vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, which funny
Sorry, it
enough,
just has to.
my husband now wants to watch Game of Thrones because I'm so into these fantasy books. Have either of you
love it.
watched it?
No, but Jake's always like, you would love Game of Thrones now that
Yeah.
I'm reading all this.
Yeah, I
I've
don't
heard
know.
that. I
Have you
haven't
watched
watched
it?
it. No.
Me neither.
No.
So let us know if you have watched Game of Thrones and you feel
Yeah.
like we need to watch it. I will say I don't know when I'm going to have the time to do that.
That's
Yeah.
my thing.
I'm busy reading.
It sounds so pick me and it's so annoying, but I like don't watch TV because I'd rather read.
Yeah.
But I don't have the time to commit to
Me
that. Because when I
neither.
read, if I get distracted or I need to do something, I'll put on an audiobook and go clean my house.
Yeah.
Or I'll put on my audiobook while I drive
Yeah.
to work or whatever, and I can still get my reading in. But like a show, that's a lot of commitment.
It's a lot of commitment.
a
yeah,
lot.
with reading.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it really is.
But I think that that's what really ties us back to Fourth Wing is like even like the storyline after like you think that these romance books or these fantasy books are just like kind of silly, but once again I made my husband listen to the first like we got through the first
Yeah.
30% maybe. He's like the storyline's cool. It's
is.
a cool storyline.
Yeah.
It so is. There's
Yeah.
so much that happens. And like another point to bring up, there is like such a great story between the love interest, Violet and Zayden, but also like the bond between her and her dragons is so good.
Yeah,
Like,
and the found family, the friendships between
Yeah.
I
her and
know.
Liam and
oh my God, guys.
I know.
I can't. I
know.
can't.
It's so good.
was there anything else we wanted to touch on?
No,
on
I think we
this?
wanted to end with our rating of Fourth Wing, and I know we're all 5 out of 5.
Yep.
It's like a 6-star read.
Yeah,
is a 6-star read for
It like
sure.
altered
So
my brain
good.
chemistry.
It did. Same.
Yeah.
I always like joke with Cody too. Like we don't like the same movies. He likes action,
Yeah.
superheroes, things like that. But I tell him all the time, I'm like, if Fourth Wing was a movie,
He
you
would like
love
it. Yep.
You would love it. He won't read it, but
No.
he's so funny. I was talking to him the other day, and I was like, "Who is my favorite book boyfriend?" And he was like, "Zayden." Like he literally
knows.
knew. He's got it
He
down.
knows it's like his direct
Zaddy.
Yeah, he's like Zaddy Ryerson. But then he's like, "What's my favorite map on Call of Duty?" He's like, "What's my favorite Call of Duty map?" I'm like, "I'll get back to you."
I'm crying.
But he knows my book boyfriends. So.
That is so cute.
It's so cute. I always say Fourth Wing is a really good jumping off point for anyone that wants to get into reading. If you're not reading right now and you want to just escape for a little bit and it really isn't that heavy, it's a light like lighter than the later books, but
Yeah.
it's a read that is so enjoyable and entertaining. Like
Yeah.
anyone I've recommended it to has liked it.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's that good.
Yeah, so we're all 5 out of 5 here.
Deserves
6,
the hype.
10 out of 5, literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good.
And she's got her new one coming out in January,
I
which I
know.
can't wait.
So
Yeah.
that is kind of what we're going to talk about next week. We're going into Iron Flame.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
at 60%. I know I said I was going to finish it by this week, but I didn't. So
No, and we talked about how we really don't want this podcast to be always just like book reviews. We want to
Yeah.
kind of talk about like why we love reading anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like, it's such a big thing, and it's funny because husbands now are like, oh yeah, all of our wives are reading. Like,
Yeah.
women are all reading these books, and so it's fun to just kind of talk about the whys.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it'll be fun to dive
So
into
we're
that.
going to dive into that next episode.
Yay!
Perfect.
Okay, if you have any questions again on Fourth Wing, or you want to discuss with us, or you want to jump on their little Zayden bandwagon, feel free to on
Get
our
on the
socials.
bandwagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, follow, subscribe. We are on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube,
Apple Music, iHeartRadio, anywhere.
Yeah, and now we have video, so it's so exciting.
Yeah, we've got video on YouTube, which is exciting.
Yeah.
We're also still
Ashley is
doing
the
our
IT
giveaway.
queen, guys. She has like pulled through for us.
She has. She really has.
She's the best.
Yeah.
I will say, like, there was a lot of learning on the IT side, but it was nothing that I couldn't figure out with a Google search.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, how to
No, I
start
am
a podcast.
so impressed.
We're also still doing our giveaway.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. So we're doing a giveaway. So what we want you to do is if you listen to the podcast and you like it, just post about it.
Yeah.
We don't want you to share that it's a giveaway because then it makes it feel inauthentic, which we hope it is authentic.
Yeah.
And we are going to give away a Kindle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all read on our Kindle a lot. So if you pick up if you look at Ashley's book, like it is juicy and it seems daunting. For some reason, when you hold a Kindle, it doesn't
It's
feel
so
as
light,
daunting.
yeah.
So we love our Kindles. We want to give one away. You can share on any of your socials and just tag us.
Yeah.
And we will enter everyone in, and at the end of the month, we will pull someone and send them a Kindle.
And it's going to be posted on our Instagram.
Make
too.
sure to, and leave us reviews if you have any thoughts or.
Yeah, and recommendations.
share
If
the
you
love.
Yeah.
think we would like a book, or if there's something you want us to talk about, send us a DM, reply
Yeah.
on Spotify, whatever you want to do. We want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
Yay!
Okay, we'll see you guys next week.
Talk to you next week.
Have the best week.
Bye.
Enjoy your reading. Bye.
Love you all. Bye.